Every evening, this dad anxiously waits for his son to get home before dark. If his son is even a minute late, he'll yell at him and then rush home as fast as he can. Finally, he locks all the doors and windows tight. Even then, the father still dares not let his guard down, because once it gets dark, the outside world no longer belongs to humans. Only after ensuring not even a single fly could enter the house would the family of 3 sit down to enjoy their dinner. But just then, the dog suddenly started scratching at the carpet, and Paul instantly realized this would be a sleepless night. He quickly called his son over to the door. Sure enough, the very next second, that terrifying thing outside came knocking. To save their lives, the father and son barricaded the door, knowing that if it were breached, it would mean certain death for all 3 of them. And so, they spent countless nights in sheer terror. By early the next morning, the door was covered in scratch marks. Clearly, the claws of that unknown creature were razor sharp. To reinforce their defenses, they had no choice but to go outside in search of supplies. However, the older son had made plans with his girlfriend to go on a date that day. On the way, the older son was extremely restless, taking advantage of his father's absence. He told his younger brother to go look for supplies alone, while he went to his girlfriend's house for their date, agreeing to meet back at the original spot before dark. Since this wasn't the first time the older brother had sneaked off, the younger brother had no choice but to turn a blind eye. Little did he know that this time, an accident had befallen his older brother. Time flew by, and dusk fell quickly. Just as Thomas was running toward the meeting spot, he accidentally slipped into a crevice in the forest. When the younger brother drove to the meeting spot, he waited and waited but saw no sign of his older brother. At first, he thought his older brother had gone home early, so he had no choice but to drive back home as well. But upon returning home, he discovered his older son wasn't there. This made Paul realize that his eldest son had met with an accident. So Paul told his younger son to stay home and keep watch, while he went out to search for his older son. They both knew this outing was likely to end badly, but as a father, how could he possibly ignore his son's fate? Gripping a sharp knife, he headed into the forest. Meanwhile, Thomas had regained consciousness, since night had already fallen. He was terrified. Every sound around him filled him with dread. Despite this, the monster scared Thomas so badly that he collapsed. Just as the monster was about to devour Thomas, his father arrived just in time. He managed to drag the unknown creature out. Since the outside was completely shrouded in darkness, they had no choice but to hide in the crevice for the night. They then brought stones to block the entrance. They thought they were safe now, but they had underestimated the monster's strength. Suddenly, a crack appeared in the ground. Clearly, the monster intended to crawl up from beneath the earth. Seeing that they would surely die if this continued, the father had no choice but to stuff a dynamite stick into the hole. Meanwhile, his exhausted younger brother had fallen asleep on a stool, unaware that the monster had already opened the entrance and was slowly reaching its withered little hand through the crack. It seemed the boy was doomed. But unbeknownst to them, this was all part of a trap he had set to lull the monster into a false sense of security. Then he pulled the rope hidden in his hand. It appears that in this post-apocalyptic world, the boy had long since honed formidable survival skills.